Hi, I am Cryo. This is going to be my first audio fic. This is the reading of To Be a Person to Have a Name by Kirabasai. It is a teen and up audiences. It's got no archive warnings apply. It's a gen fic. The fandom is the Twisted Wonderland. Relationships are Lilia, Van Rouge, and you. Silver and you, or player, you/player, and Spec Zigvolt. The characters are the player, Lilia Van Rouge, Silver, Spec Zigvolt, Grim, Ace Tropola, Deuce Spade, Jack Howell, Leona Kingscaller, Kaleem Asim. Jamil is also there, even more briefly. Brief Tweel's appearance. Actually, brief appearances from virtually everyone in the first 4 dorms. Brief OC cameos. Character. Dyer Crowley. Additional tags. Mentioned Malleus Draconia. Fae and Fairies. Female player. Player is from Twisted Wonderland. Parental Lilia Van Rouge. Good parent Lilia Van Rouge. Lilia Van Rouge being a little shit. Bad cook Lilia Van Rouge. Or is he? Amnesia, because things are more interesting and more mysterious sparkle that way. Covers Twisted Wonderland games episodes 1 through 4, plus event Scary Monsters Screaming Halloween Show, Dreams, Runes, The Duality of Fae, One Shot, Fluff, Families of Choice, and I mean families of choice in the most literal sense because it's a fae. Adoption, rated T for swearing in one instance of ritualistic self-harm. Second chapter is Addendum, Rituals, Protective Lilia Van Rouge, Protective Silver Van Rouge, Player-centric, Hints of past/future angst, Self-doubt, Lighthearted. This fic started from what if you talked to Lilia more after they meet? And wow, there is a criminal lack of fics where Lilia adopts you colliding in my head, and everything spiraled from there. Lilia Van Rouge adopts you. Overplots happen, but are mostly glossed over, as this focuses on interactions with Lilia and whatnot. Would this be considered a slow burn adoption? Good brother Silver Van Rouge. Doc title for this is Making Lilia a Girl Dad, lol. This is part 1 of the series Yume no Ko, Child of Dreams. It hasn't been updated recently, but it's going to be soon, I think. I hope. Okay. To be a person to have a name. Yumeko is fully aware she should be more conscientious of her actions, fully aware it's better to exercise caution, fully aware she should be more fearful of the potential danger that is Lilia Van Rouge. But she simply does not care. Yumiko's curiosity and intrigue burns under her skin, aching to be settled. She does not know what draws her to the Fae, but she finds she does not mind. Or, in which a curious student keeps seeking out a certain Fae's company, and Lilia Van Rouge finds himself gradually growing attached to a young human. I'm not sure if I should read the notes or not. This is my first time doing this. So, if I'm not doing this right, please comment in the channel. This is my first time doing this. Chapter 1. Lilia Van Rouge. The third year's abrupt appearance has the entire table jumping in their seats, Yumiko included. All at once, voices clamor over each other as they try to recover from their surprise. Everyone except Yumiko. Instead, Yumiko observes the new rival, the third year named Lilia Van Rouge, who is from Diasomnia. He floats upside down in the air, yet his hair does not obey gravity and stays still. His ears are pointed, which is another new concept to Yumiko. First the boy with animal ears, and now this. Lilia flips over nothing and squeezes into the seat between Trey and Ace, seemingly having no care for the minor chaos he triggered. There is no need to gawk from afar. Lilia begins to speak, his deep voice almost like a lullaby. You are always welcome to speak with us directly. We are schoolmates, no? We at Diasomnia welcome you without reservation. Lilia's eyes crinkle up into little crescent moons, having no considerations about concealing his almost carefree attitude. And yet those guys over there aren't exactly winning any medals in approachability, Deuce mutters. Yumiko looks back at the table Lilia came from, and, well, he isn't wrong, but Yumiko will never let a couple of surly-looking dudes get in the way of her curiosity. A low chuckle draws Yumiko's attention back to Lilia. She finds herself making eye contact, and somewhere inside of her is an instinct yelling, "Danger!" as she looks into Red Eyes. Yumiko has never been one to run from apparent danger, thus far, though can she really say that when her memories prior to coming to Night Raven College are so muddy? Do forgive me for appearing above you over your meal. I do hope to get the chance to speak again, Lilia says, between one breath and the next. He's gone from his place between Trey and Ace. Looking back at his previous table reveals he's returned to where he was before. Many questions are swirling through Yumiko's mind. Dude, Ace hisses in disbelief. Their table has got to be at least 20 feet away from ours. And they overheard our conversation? That's way freaky. Yumiko feels as though she's vibrating with barely contained excitement. He did say they were welcome to talk whenever, didn't he? Well, Diasomnia has a bit of a reputation for having a lot of special students. Some of them are extremely talented with magic, Trey sort of explains, as if that answers anything. He's about to say something else, but Yumiko cuts him off. I'm going to talk to him, she says, very determined. You-chan? Cater exclaims. Yumiko is not sure why he looks so shocked. Oh, no, Deuce groans. It's going to be like the library all over again. I'll see you guys later, she says, barely holding back the grin on her face as she hops out of her chair. The last two things Yumiko hears as she walks away is Ace saying, Great, we've lost him, and Grim crying out, Henchmen! Yumiko ignores their words, focused on her task of reaching Lilia's table. It's still about mid-lunch, so not many people are out of their seats, but she does not have to weave to the side of the aisle as she passes a particularly short redhead. Yumiko is fully aware that she should be more conscientious of her actions, fully aware it's better to exercise caution, fully aware she should be more fearful of the potential danger that is Lilia Van Rouge. But she simply does not care. Yumiko's curiosity and intrigue burns under her skin, aching to be settled. Had she left less self-restraint, she would be vibrating with excitement. Oh? Lilia says in lieu of a proper greeting as Yumiko approaches his table of 3. You are one of the first years who's sitting at Cater's table. I did not expect a visitor so soon. He continues, snickering good-naturedly. Yumiko is sure he was expecting her arrival regardless of what he says, because she has allowed her intentions to talk to Lilia after he left. To Lilia's left is a silver-haired boy with a blank face. Yumiko thinks it probably isn't that far off to what her own expression looks like when she isn't interested or feigning disinterest in something, or simply bored, not excited. She gets the feeling he's scrutinizing her, trying to determine what she's like. His ears are round like hers and unlike Lilia's. He looks somewhat familiar now that she thinks about it. To Lilia's right is a guy with pale green hair. His ears are slightly pointed, but nowhere to the degree that Lilia's are. He looks, to put it frankly, angry. Even angrier than he looked when Yumiko saw him back at her table with the others. To put it to Deuce's words, he is on track to win the gold medal in unapproachability. I am, Yumiko nods in agreement with Lilia's statement. Briefly, she wonders if he knows Cater personally because of how he identified the table as Cater's. Briefly, she feels as though Lilia's eyes are boring into her very soul. She does not look away from him as she takes a seat across from him. Yumiko breathes in, ready to introduce herself, but... Human! The green-haired student barks at her. How dare you presume Lilia-sama's hospitality and intrude our space, with such an unruly appearance as well? Yumiko blinks, idly touching her messily cut bob. He isn't wrong. Her uniform came directly from Lost and Found. So the shirt and blazer are already quite big on her. On top of that, she doesn't have a vest and hasn't yet learned how to properly do a tie. And that doesn't even touch on her hair. Whoever cut her hair into what it is now should never touch another pair of scissors in their life. Vanru-senpai said we could speak to him directly, though, she says after a beat, turning to look at the guy. And that you're welcome to. Also, please call me you instead of human. There's a lot of humans at this school, you know. Wouldn't want you to accidentally mix us up. This seems to annoy Green Hair even further. But before he could say anything, Lilia cuts him off with a laugh. Sebek, don't worry so much. You both may share some classes later in the semester, you know, being in the same year. Lilia chides, waving him off. Yumiko absorbs the information like a sponge. The green-haired student is a first year named Sebek. Regardless, it is nice to have your acquaintance, you. I am pleased to see a non-diasomnia student taking the initiative to speak with us. Though I do wonder why you sought little old me out only minutes after our meeting. Sebek, Yumiko notices, is not trying very hard to conceal his untrusting glares. The silver-haired boy seems to be focusing back on his meal, however. She tries to take a moment to collect her thoughts, to organize her questions, but she unwittingly blurts one thought out. Your hair is super cool, Yumiko says, words almost barely incomprehensible from her barely contained excitement. Oh? Lilia starts to respond. But before he could say any more, Yumiko starts to shoot off rapid-fire statements, almost as though her curiosity has boiled over a pot's edge. Like, are the pink streaks natural? Did he dye it? Did you always have the streaks, but decided you wanted them pink? And when you were upside down, your hair just stayed in place, like you were sitting on the ground normally. And how were you upside down? I saw nothing you could have hung off from. Are you just naturally capable of floating? Were you using a form of magic when you teleported? Was that actual teleportation, like moving across space-time? Or is it something else that just appeared as teleportation, and your hair defied the laws of gravity? Yumiko rambles, unashamedly, revealing her lack of knowledge and brimming curiosity. Her expression has also changed from a calm disposition to an open eagerness, sparkling eyes and wide grin and all. And sorry, I have amnesia, but would it be rude to ask what species you are? I mean, clearly not human if you heard us at our table from all the way over here, which is honestly super cool. Does it get hard to distinguish sounds with that much auditory input? Do you just ignore most of it and subconsciously filter out the voices of people you don't know? Actually, do you know Cater-senpai? You called our table Caters, which I guess makes sense, because he seems like the type of guy to know everyone. But, oh right, do you have any other enhanced senses? Does your enhanced hearing come at the price of another sense? Oh! Yumiko pauses, her hands frozen mid-gesture as she blinks. Sorry, I got a bit carried away. My curiosity gets the better of me sometimes. Lilia seems to take a moment to process the waterfall of words that just flew out of Yumiko's mouth. But then, he laughs. The silver-haired student is staring between her and Lilia, and Sebek is scowling into his soup. Why, aren't you an interesting child, to openly ask so many questions for curiosity's sake? Lilia peers at Yumiko, his red eyes almost looking as though they were flashing as he props his head into the palm of one of his hands. Oh no, I'm fully aware I should be exercising more caution. It just so happens that following after what intrigues me is higher up on my priorities than anything else. Yumiko clarifies, tilting her head as she makes eye contact with Lilia. He chuckles again. a low tone that would have Yumiko wanting to escape were she anybody else. Ah, I see. Regardless, allow me to answer one question before anything else. What is my species? Lilia hums, and Yumiko feels as though blades of grass are cutting her skin. I am of the Fae. The library at Night Raven College has quickly become almost a second home to Yumiko, who is motivated by curiosity and the desire to fill in any gaps in her knowledge. As someone with what she highly suspects to be amnesia, there are a lot of gaps to fill. The first book Yumiko had read was a geography book, describing countries in the world and what they were known for. The next, an introductory book on magic functions. Then it was unique magic. After that, it was blot. The next was mage stones. Following this, she read the entirety of her history of magic textbook front to back. The next book she read would have been an overview of world languages, but by that point, Ace and Deuce got tired of Yumiko spending every spare moment reading or in the library, so she had to put that off. Grimm was indifferent, possibly due to the fact that there was one specific library window that was a prime napping spot. And he complains he's a cat. Okay. In the wake of Riddle Roseheart's overplot, Yumiko probably should be resting overnight in the infirmary. Instead, she breathes in the crisp air of parchment and what she suspects to be ambient magical energy, also known as natural energy. She quickly moves toward the shelf that had the book about blot. It doesn't take too long to flip to the final and shortest chapter in the book, The Phenomena of Overblot. To Yumiko's dismay, nothing new stands out now that she's read it for a second time. With a click of her tongue, she closes the book and returns it to the shelf. Were she more responsible, she would return to bed now that the reason for her nighttime excursion has been fulfilled. However, there is one more thing she wants to check out. One more thing that's been in the back of her mind, that's been nagging in the back of her mind, since before the disastrous birthday party and everything that followed. 2 books are placed on one of the library tables: A Guide to World Species and an overview of the Fae. Yumiko was fully aware Diasomnia was in on their plan, that Cater was coordinating everything on that end, and so Savannah Claw would not succeed in the final step of their sabotage plot. She never considered Lilia Von Rouge would be one of the Diasomnia players, nor that he would show up with Sebek and that same silver-haired boy from before in tow. Despite only meeting him once, his presence is something Yumiko's brain fixates on. Unique magic. Ruggy using his to control a stampede as though they're puppets on strings, and Cater willfully making copies of himself to act as a decoy Diasomnia team. A part of Yumiko wonders if it would be rude to ask if Cater remembers what his clone experiences. Yumiko still isn't 100% sure on the details of who Malleus Draconia is, but as Sebek confirms his lord's well-being and the involvement in clearing things up following the stampede, she sees Leona Kingscolor's face shudder into something almost empty. Hearing the prince's words is akin to watching a train wreck in motion, a shirt pulling apart at its seams until... Unique magic. The dry air chafes into Yumiko's skin, and she watches with a detached sort of fascination as the ground slowly becomes littered with black dots. Dead bugs who no longer have enough moisture in their body to maintain life. Sand swirls around Leona's feet. He has all of this power, this destructive power, but yet he sounds so defeated. Unique magic. Riddle's collar on Leona feels like discovering an oasis in the desert. It's as though everyone can breathe a little easier. Yumiko hears the silver-haired boy suggest they should move the wounded somewhere safe to Sebek, and her fellow first-year responds that Silver shouldn't order him around. She isn't sure if Silver is the student's actual name, and his parents were extremely uncreative, or if Svek is calling him Silver the way he called Yumiko human. That is, calling them by a predominant and identifying feature. Regardless, it's the closest thing she has to a name for that student, so she will remember it. Lilia speaks for the first time since his arrival, and the words are far from kind. The idea of the Savannah's Lion King witnessing such a tantrum, indeed, that collar suits you far more than a crown ever would. Leona stares in belief. Lilia continues. You bemoan the fact that you are not higher in the royal line of succession, yet your fragile ego is quick to direct all your petty anger towards your retainers. It's absolutely laughable. The idea of you contending with a real king like our Malleus. Even if you did best Malleus, you would never be fit to rule so long as this is how you conduct yourself. His words feel like glass under Yumiko's feet, an intense bite that raises the hair on her arms, despite none of those words being directed at Yumiko herself. It's silent for a long moment, but then Leona laughs. It's a cutting, broken sound full of despair and pity, and everything and nothing at once, all at once. The air feels heavy. His magical power is surging. I don't think my collar can hold it much longer, Riddle exclaims, face inches away from panic. Lilia shakes his head. No, this is not magical power, but rather negative energy, which means... He trails off, quickly crouching at Cater's warning, directed at everyone to duck. Lilia didn't finish his sentence, but Yumiko understands regardless. Blot. Or rather, an overblot. Sand cuts against Yumiko's face, and she covers her mouth with her blazer sleeve so as to not breathe in any. Riddle is quick to take charge, ordering for anyone capable of escape to do so, and for Deuce and Ace to help him escort the injured. He orders Lilia to contact the faculty for help, and the face-parting words stick in Yumiko's mind. Stay strong until I return. It's been about a week since Leona's overblot, and things seem to have returned relatively back to normal, aside from Jack, Ruggy, and Leona joining the gaggle of schoolmates she's somewhat familiar with. Yumiko can almost ignore the fact that her injury in the Showcase Spell Drive game ended up exposing her gender, which, really, she's surprised it took this long for somebody to notice. On the upside, she's still a student in the student populace, excluding the 8 students she knows between Hartslapule and Svanaclaw, does not know. Yumiko suspects it's only a matter of time before they do, but that's not here nor there. She hasn't discovered any downsides yet, but she's sure they'll turn up eventually. Regardless, it's been a week and Yumiko has not seen a single hair of Lilia Von Rouge, so now she is seeking out alternate routes. Asking around about Svek leaves Yumiko with 4 main takeaways. He is in class 1D. His surname is Zigvold. He can be quite loud, and he really, really, really admires Malleus Draconia. From what she can remember from her own brief encounter with Sebek, he might not like humans. With that in mind, Yumiko enters 1D's homeroom, half expecting Sebek to throw her right back out. Instead, he looks up from his current task as the classroom door opens. Upon making eye contact with her, his face contorts into a mix of annoyance and something else Yumiko can't quite place. Unaired? I'm not sure if this is supposed to be undeterred, but anyway. She walks straight to the front of Sebek's desk. Hello, Zigvold-san, Yumiko greets. Sebek looks up from his homework, straightening his posture as he faces her. Human, he responds. Why are you here? Sebek seems calm right now, thankfully, if you ignore the tenseness in his jaw and his narrowed eyes. Yumiko considers reminding him to call her you instead, but decides this is something she can't get off track for. I was wondering if you knew where I could find Vanru-senpai. It's been a while since we last spoke, but since he's a third year, I don't have a clue on where to look, Yumiko explains. Speck's face turns to a scowl as he remembers the last time she and Lilia spoke. She suspects she did not like the species-specific questions she lobbed at their senpai. Presumptuous human, I am not your watchdog nor your sniffer dog, and to ask me to disclose the potential location of Lilia-sama to an outsider, he exclaims. Yumiko lets out a silent sigh, having expected that result. Thanks anyway, Ziegfeld-san. See you around, she waves, quickly walking through the door before she can anger Sebek further. The trees near Ramshackle Dorm are old, with sprawling, untrimmed branches, providing a perfect mix of shade and natural light for reading outdoors. Yumiko enjoys it, something about the atmosphere calming her in a way few other things do. Oh-ho, I hear you've been looking for little old me. A voice sounds out from above Yumiko. Looking up reveals Lilia, perched on one of the lower-hung branches while he swings his feet back and forth. Vanru-senpai, Yumiko exclaims, a rush of excitement surprising her as she recognizes the third year. It's been so long since we talked. Should I come up to you? If you so desire, hums Lilia, watching as Yumiko starts to climb the tree. I see your haircut has improved since we last spoke. The tips of her ears flush red. I asked Kater-senpai if he could even my hair out. I think I'm going to let it grow for now. Though. Did Ziegfeld-san tell you I was looking for you? He might have let it slip during a monologue. Lilia mildly comments. Yumiko strongly suspects this monologue was actually just a string of complaints. Did you wish to speak with me because you had more questions? Yumiko blinks as she processes the question. Why did she want to talk with Lilia? No, actually, she says as she sits next to him. At least, none specifically for you. I always have questions floating around in my head. It's more, Yumiko trails off, unsure of what to say. Lilia stays quiet, waiting for her to finish the sentence. The first time she had spoken to the Fae, he had entertained her question and even provided book recommendations. The second time she met Lilia, they didn't exchange a single word, but stay strong until I return, echoes in the back of her mind, his parting words in the last time she had seen him prior to this. Stay strong, rather than to survive. But Yumiko isn't very strong, is she? Seeing Lilia now feels reassuring for some reason. I liked talking to you before, Yumiko says, deciding her other, more heavy reason will bog down the atmosphere. No, that's a conversation for the end of the day. Truly. Lilia blinks at her. Yumiko nods. Lilia hums. If you do not have any questions to ask of me, how about I ask you some? What if I don't know the answer, my amnesia and all? Yumiko questions, tilting her head. Lilia waves off the concern with a laugh. Then you simply say so. We can start off easy, though. What do you do for fun? I go on runs in the morning and read in my free time, she weakly offers after thinking about it for a few seconds. Solving a puzzle sounds kind of fun as well, I guess. Yumiko finishes with a shrug. I see you were reading prior to my arrival, Lilia notes, peering down at the small pile of books carefully placed atop a towel. She didn't want the books to get dirty laying on the ground. Oh, yeah, I was, Yumiko nods. An overview of linguistic development, technology in the 21st century, a guide to ancient languages and runes, the power of names, and understanding natural energy. Bit of a mixed bag, really. Lilia waves his pen, and the worn leather tome that is the power of names floats upward into her arms. That's quite an old book, and quite a forgotten use of magic, Lilia passively notes, his red eyes glinting. Yumiko shrugs. It's true, not many people realize how significant names, identity, can be when it comes to magic. I remember my first name, but not my last name. Thought maybe there could be a link between that and my amnesia. She pauses, then turns to Lilia. Forgotten use? Yumiko repeats, brain wandering. Are there more things magic is capable of doing, but society has forgotten now? Lilia chuckles, bright and amused like a crackling fireplace. Of course there are. I've traveled to many places and bore witness to all kinds of magic. Blacksmiths in one nation used to carve runes into their craft to enchant new qualities into them. Yumiko briefly wonders just how old Lilia is. After all, him being a fae means his lifespan is vastly different. The thought is quickly discarded in lieu of a more pressing question, however. Wouldn't their magic eventually run out, though? I can't imagine maintaining the enchantments on the room is very sustainable. Ah, but the runes were not powered by their magic. Rather, it drew upon surrounding natural, ambient magic. Even humans are capable of sensing this, though it's only at times when the concentration of magical energy is quite high. Lilia explains with a grin, one of his sharp canines peeking out from his upper lip. Like when Leona-senpai overblooded? Yumiko clarifies, her mind already spinning with further research topics. I suppose so, yes. Although, like I said back then, that was more negative energy. Blot, she idly comments, tracing the spine of the tome in her hands. You were pretty cool back then, even though you missed the fight. Lilia blinks, and then he laughs. How unusual. Others might say it was my fault if Leona overblotted in the first place, or that I ran away from the fight. He amusedly comments. He doesn't sound particularly guilty or remorseful about either of those things. And Yumiko strangely doesn't care whether or not he does. Regardless, it is good to see you in good health and uninjured. Yumiko doesn't know if he sincerely means that. Stay strong until I return, Yumiko echoes, thinking back to the incident. Lilia blinks. Pardon? That's what you said when you left before. Stay strong until I return. I'm not really strong, though, not like anybody else here. So I tried not to get hurt instead, she clarifies. She feels as though Lilia's eyes are boring into her soul as the fae absorbs her words. After a moment, he speaks once more. Strength can be found in many places. In the library, there is a small nook lit only by lantern light. 3 books lie next to a sleeping student. A comprehensive history and overview of swords, the changing practices of blacksmiths, and properties of magic, a form of energy. Diasomnia is a far cry from both Heartslabule and Savanaclaw, both appearance-wise and atmosphere-wise. It looks cool, though, and Yumiko can't help but think it fits Lilia quite well. It hasn't been very long since she and Lilia had last spoke, perhaps a week at most, but Yumiko still finds herself walking up the path to the main dorm building. Lilia had told her last time she was always welcome to seek him out at Diasomnia. Yumiko had thought she wouldn't for a while, because there was no curiosity itching to be sated. But yet, here she is, not even a week later, cookies and boxes of bleach and jars of hair dye in her bag, seeking out the fae once more. She doesn't particularly care about whether or not her hair has been dyed. It's more of an excuse, a reason to seek Lilia out, a way to justify spending more time with him. Grimm had very quickly decided not to join her on this small expedition, saying that those guys from Diasomnia are too scary. He isn't wrong. They are a bit scary, but Yumiko doesn't mind nor care. She hopes Grimm has fun hanging out with Ruggy. As Yumiko approaches the large front door, she hesitates. Should she knock? Does she just walk in? Should she wait? Boo. A familiar voice says next to her ear. Yumiko jolts, whirling around. Lilia-senpai! She exclaims, holding a hand over her heart. How long have you been behind me? Lilia chuckles, his eyes crinkling with mirth. Who knows? It's then that Yumiko notices the added touch of glittery green eyeshadow to the Fae's eyelid. Actually, his entire look is a far cry from the school uniform she's seen him in. Whoa, is that your dorm uniform? It looks so cool and pretty. Yumiko breathes, eyeing the ensemble of frilled collar shirt, corset, layered tulle half skirt, shorts, tights, astronomically oversized jacket, and knee-high heels. Lilia's face takes on a bit of a smug expression. It is, right? Super cute. He nods in agreement, doing a small spin. Though I doubt seeing my dorm uniform is why you made the little journey to our Diasomnia. He adds, his eyes glinting with something she can't place. Oh, right. Yumiko snaps her fingers. Before you said you did your highlights yourself, and well, I have bleach and hair dye to do mine, but I've never done it before, and I really don't want to mess it up, so I was wondering if you could help me? I brought cookies, hand-baked by Clover-senpai as well. Oh? What a strange request. Never has somebody approached me asking for assistance in dyeing their hair. Lilia chuckles. I've heard many good things about trace-baked goods. I have no issues with helping you. Yumiko, oddly enough, finds herself beaming at Lilia's agreement. Come along, young one. Lilia beckons, walking past Yumiko into the entrance. He holds the door open until she catches up to him, and is quick to join her at her side once she enters the building. The room appears to be a common room, surprisingly cozy despite the tall ceiling and looming stone bricks. Armchairs and tables are scattered about, and couches group around the fireplace. Most of the floor is also stone, but carpets are strategically placed in varying locations. It's also completely empty. Lilia-senpai, Yumiko briefly hesitates, looking around everywhere as she walks with him. How come there's nobody here? Lilia hums, considering. I'm not entirely sure. I had said this morning I was planning on cooking lunch for the dorm, but by the time lunch rolled around, almost everyone was gone. He gesticulates, a not-so-innocent grin on his face. She suspects he wanted the students out of the dorm for something, but she could not say if it was for a prank or something serious. Yumiko also wonders just how bad a single man's cooking must be if the threat of it drove out almost everyone in the dorm, and they all still haven't returned, despite it being well past lunchtime. She spends a considerable amount of time observing her surroundings as they pass them by, enthralled by how different it is compared to all the other places she has seen so far. Yumiko almost didn't notice they've arrived at their destination. And here we are, Lily announces, opening the door with a flourish. It's as she enters the room Yumiko realizes two things. Lilia had not said where they were going, and this is Lilia's room. Yumiko blinks, trying to process this as Lilia skips in from behind her. Lilia knows she is naturally curious. Showing her his room like this is like dangling bait in front of a fish. Your room is so cool, she compliments, eyeing the various decorations and antiques scattered around the room. One corner houses a cluster of instruments, and on his desk is a computer setup. His rug and bed sheets are bat-themed, which is a bit on the nose, but not wholly a surprise coming from Lilia. After a moment, she remembers her manners and quickly pauses her scrutinizing of Lilia's room in favor of opening her messenger bag. It takes no effort to find the tin of cookies she got from Trey. I'm grateful for your hospitality, Yumiko says, careful not to use thank you so as to not accidentally incur a debt. She holds out the tin with both hands, and Lilia plucks it from her grasp with a pleased hum. He pops open the lid and takes out one cookie, taking a bite. These are great. Do send Trey my regards next time you see him, Lilia says, finishing off the rest of the cookie. He closes the tin again, setting it aside for later. Now then, Lilia starts, clapping his hands together. Sit down and show me what products you are using. He finishes, sitting on the large, plush back-shaped carpet. He pats the spot in front of him. Yumiko sits right there. So I have the bleach, of course, Yumiko says, pulling out 3 boxes. I wasn't sure how many times my hair needs to be bleached for it to be light enough, so I got 3. She explains, before pulling out a jar of vibrant purple dye and a jar of deep blue. I couldn't decide between the purple and blue, and Leona Senpai was already paying for all this anyways, so I got both. Leona? Lilia blinks, his eyes slightly widening in surprise. Why was he paying for this? I told him I wanted compensation for the emotional turmoil and trauma I experienced during his overblot. Yumiko answers, hiding a grin behind her oversized jacket sleeve. She suspects it's also partially because she's a girl, and apparently you're supposed to treat girls very well in the Sunset Savannah. Subjecting a girl to the experience of overblot likely does not fall within the grounds of treating females well. Lilia laughs, his wide smile showing off his fangs. Clever child, going for that opportunity, he crows, patting Yumiko's head. We can tackle the color later. Let us focus on the bleach for now. I presume you brought your hairbrush? She nods. Very well then. While I grab tin foil and any other things we may need, you can brush out your hair, Lilia instructs. Yumiko nods once more, grabbing her hairbrush out of her bag. Lilia disappears between one blank and the next, just as she did the first time she met him all those weeks ago. Yumiko doesn't know how long Lilia has been gone, but it's only a few moments after she places her hairbrush down that he reappears. In his arms is the aforementioned tinfoil, but he also has scissors and juice boxes? I'm back, he announces, setting his spoils down on the carpet with them. I also got scissors in case anything goes wrong, and juice boxes because I would be a terrible host to have my guest go thirsty. Ooh, good thinking, Lilia-senpai. Yumiko agrees, deciding not to wonder why Diasomnia has such a large stash of juice boxes. Now that your hair is brushed out, the only other preparations we need to do is mix the formula and have you put on a sacrificial shirt. Lilia continues, popping open one of the boxes and taking out a classic bleach kit array. Bowl, brush, gloves, and the bleach stuff. Sacrificial shirt? She confusedly asks, tilting her head. I mean the spare shirt you wouldn't mind getting bleach or dye on. Lilia clarifies. Yumiko does not have a spare shirt. She has an array of uniform dress shirts and pants and blazers from the Lost and Found, enough to last her a little more than a week before she needs to do laundry. She's not sure what she'll do for when they dye it, but bleach only lightens, right? Since her dress shirt is already white, taking off her blazer and tie should probably be fine. Yumiko carefully folds the discarded blazer before setting it off to the side with her tie. Alright, that's all mixed up. How did you want it bleached again? Lilia asks as he looked up from the bowl. He blinks, and after a moment, Yumiko blinks back. Where is your spare shirt? He asks after a beat. Oh, I only have the school uniform, but I figured the dress shirt would be fine since it's white already and bleach lightens. Yumiko explains. Lilia's expression turns into something unreadable. Sorry, should I have bought one as well? I didn't realize that was something you needed. I should have done more research. She apologizes after a few seconds. No. There's nothing you are at fault for here. Lilia waves her off, standing up to rifle through one of the dresser drawers. Should be... yes! Here we go. He mutters to himself, grabbing something. Between one moment and the next, Yumiko's vision is suddenly obscured by pink. Grabbing the offender off her face, reveals it to be a warm pink graphic tee. So warm she can't even distinguish what the words or characters are. Yumiko vocalizes, processing the gesture as she stares at Lilia. You can use that. I've no use for it for a while now, Lilia explains, sitting back down. Yumiko doesn't know how to feel. The gesture, though it may be insignificant to Lilia, stirs something in her chest. She has to mentally refrain herself from saying thank you. Oh, she settles on, her voice so foreignly soft she almost doesn't recognize it. She slips the shirt on over her dress shirt, which thankfully fits. Yumiko and Lilia have similar builds, though she is the slightest bit taller than him. Once the shirt is on, she unbuttons her dress shirt from underneath the pink fabric. Once it's unbuttoned, it's no hard task to slip both her arms out of the dress shirt sleeves and pull the loose garment out from underneath. Lilia watches her with a curious expression, but thankfully doesn't question why she didn't just switch shirts the normal way, as one would in the locker rooms. Of course, there's the fact that she's wearing a bra, but even if she were a boy, no, she does not think she'd do it the normal way then as well. I was thinking we do only the back. That way it's like a gradient of my natural black in the front to whatever color we do back there, Yumiko explains, motioning to the two parts of her head. Ah, I see, Lilia hums. I understand what you mean, though to fully achieve a gradient like that, some of the sides and tips may also need to be bleached. He tacks on, moving forward to look around at her head. That's fine, Yumiko nods. Will that one box be enough for one round? Your hair is quite short right now, and doesn't yet reach your shoulders. I believe this should be enough. Lilia answers, finally setting behind her. I will start in the back, going from the ends toward the roots, he explains. Is there anything I need to do? Yumiko questions, avoiding the conversational urge to turn to face Lilia. Nope. He hums, already starting to apply the bleach. I would suggest getting comfy, or something to occupy yourself with, though. This can take a while. I do always have a few library books in my bag, she muses aloud, considering. Oh, what books do you have right now? Lilia asks, inquisitive. Lilia briefly rummages through her bag, and within a minute, 3 books are laid down in front of her. Let's see. Changing Times, The History of Briar Valley. Forgotten Ruins, Ancient Runes, and Ley Lines. And lastly, A Comprehensive History and Overview of Swords. She lists. That last one, the one about swords, I was going to read a while back, but I dozed off before I could start it. A bit of a mixed bag this time as well, Lilia comments. Well, I wanted to look into that thing you mentioned before with runes and magic, so I started to do that, but I can't just neglect my curiosity for everything else, Yumiko explains, picking up the one about on swords. For example, I'm pretty sure this has nothing to do with anything else I'm looking into, but I am curious about swords, because you used swords in your runic magic example, so I picked this book up. And the one on Briar Valley? Lilia asks. I read a lot of Fae live there, but I also read that the country is pretty isolated. So I'm mostly curious on if anything was buffed up to make it look more complete. She answers, "Are you from there, Lilia-senpai?" "Yes, I am," he replies. "That book must be accurate enough, though. Only books that are of or above a certain quality in regards to their subject matter are placed in the library." "Oh," Yumiko blinks, her mouth forming an O shape. "That being said, you were looking into old rune magic?" Lilia clarifies. I'm not doing any experiments or stuff like that, at least not now. I'm mostly trying to figure out how it worked and functioned, because you said it was a forgotten use," Yumiko says, and then pauses. "That's not illegal or anything, right?" Lilia chuckles. "No, it is not illegal, and I do not believe you are doing anything bad by trying to figure out how it worked. You are a magicless student in a school full of mages, after all." His voice warm with mirth. "I sense not a single drop of magic in this one," the dark mirror had said. "A common misconception is that only mages have magic. That is not true. Rather, every living being has magic, which plays a crucial role in a person's life force and soul. Mages are those who have enough magic to be able to utilize it without compromising the amount needed to live with that issue," is what she read in one book. Other books said similar stuff along these lines. "Colorless, no shape, an empty husk," is how the dark mirror described her soul. Yumiko knows that she is from Twisted Wonderland. Reading some books have triggered a strong deja vu. The question of how she is alive and well, amnesia aside, and how she has no magic in her body, she isn't sure she wants to know the answer. Jagged scars sprawl across her torso, too uniform to be anything but intentional. But Yumiko knows she will seek it out eventually, anyways. She is drawn to knowledge, puzzles, and intrigue, like a moth to an open flame. It's something intrinsic to her nature, something she sure has stuck with her through her amnesia, like her name. Briefly, Yumiko considers asking Lilia if he was present for the mirror ceremony, but she just as quickly discards the thought. She doesn't want to bog down the atmosphere with ugly thoughts that are sure to spawn ugly answers. "Technically, I'm only half a student," Yumiko corrects after snapping out of her thoughts, washing away the silence that had filled the air before. Yes. Grim? The Grey Tanuki, no?" Lilia clarifies. "He'd try to torch you if you called him that to his face, you know," she says, stifling a giggle. She grabs a random juice box from the pile on the floor, which turns out to be grape, and tastes very good, extremely good even. "What he doesn't know won't hurt him," Lilia sing-songs. "How's the juice box? I grabbed a few different flavors because I didn't know what your preference was." "Grape. It's actually my favorite, even though I don't like the actual fruit much," Yumiko replies, humming happily. Perhaps I should have asked for your preference before I got the juice boxes. Nobody here seems to be a fan of the grape flavor," Lilia muses. Lilia waves her hand, giving him a thumbs down from above her head. "No, that wouldn't have worked. I only remembered it was my favorite when I drank it," Yu clarifies. "Truly?" Lilia asks. "I think the best way to describe it would be... like deja vu? Not exactly remembering, but feeling as though I've already read a book and understood its contents. Doing something and getting the feeling I didn't like it before. It was like that for this grape juice," she tries to explain. "Ah, I see. Are you attempting to rediscover your interests, then?" "Not particularly," Yu shrugs. "It's not as high as a priority as settling my curiosity. Though you could say satisfying curiosity is an important interest of mine, I guess." "I do recall you saying that following after intrigue and curiosity is a higher priority for you than exercising caution the first time we spoke," Lilia comments. "Part of me can't help but wonder if you've done away with the concept entirely. seeing as you have no reservations about visiting Diasomnia despite our reputation. To be honest, I'm not sure either. Yumiko hesitantly admits, I enjoy your company. Is one thing, I suppose. Everything else is something I can't place. It's silent for a few seconds, broken only by the sound of Lilia humming and crinkling tinfoil. And then, done. That's the last foil in place. Instructions say we need to wait 40 minutes to an hour, though they suggest checking the state of their hair every 5 minutes or so after the 30-minute mark, Lilia exclaims. She turns around just in time to see him setting the gloves and bowl to the side, alongside the tinfoil. He seems to have moved on from the previous topic, which Yumiko is somewhat relieved by. That was quick, she remarks, catching her reflection on a nearby decoration. The back and sides of her head are a bouquet of tinfoil. I've done this a lot over the years. Of course I'm quick with it, Lilia brags. And she turns around just in time to see him sticking a straw into a tomato-flavored juice box. Yumiko blinks at the odd choice, but moves on. I didn't even open my book, Yumiko realizes, staring down at the copy of A Comprehensive History and Overview of Swords in her lap. I'm just better company, he chuckles, though he does take a peek at the cover. Oh, the sword history book you mentioned before. I don't believe I've read that. Should I read it aloud? Yumiko offers, blinking back up at Lilia. The Fae seems to hum in consideration until, why not? Lilia exclaims, switching into a more comfortable ground-sitting position. Yumiko is briefly surprised by the quick agreement before nodding and flipping to the first page. The sword is a weapon one may find in every country, every nation, every city, every town, every village. It has been in use long before the discovery of magic developed uniquely for society's needs. One may notice how Kun? Awake? Up. Kun. Yumiko jumps awake, rubbing at her forehead. Ow! Is that necessary? She grasses, looking at Lilia. He must have flicked her forehead with one of her fingers. We need to take out your foils and wash the bleach out, Lilia chides, helping her stand up. Bathroom is just over here. I set up a chair so we can use the sink. My bad for dozing off, Lilia-senpai, Yumiko mutters, letting the third-year dragon manhandle her into position. Don't worry about it, Lilia says, waving his hand. Okay, now tilt your head back like this. Try not to move too much. Stare at the wonky tile up there. Not moving is hard, he instructs. Oh, that tile is horrible, she idly comments. Indeed, don't talk for now. I don't want to get anything into your mouth, he warns, and after a few moments the sound of running water reaches Yumiko's ears. Yumiko stays silent the entire time it takes to wash her hair, but Lilia hums the whole time. What was that song you were humming? Yumiko asks as her hair is dried by a large rush of wind. Oh, just one from Briar Valley I've heard before. Nothing special, Lilia answers, completely brushing the question off. Now that Yumiko's hair is dry, he takes her brush from before and detangles her hair, despite Yumiko being perfectly capable of brushing her own hair. And here we go, Lilia says, handing her his phone. On the screen is a picture of her back of her head. It's nowhere near the blonde needed for the hair color to work right, but it is a light brown now. I'm thinking we do one more round of the bleach for now. Lilia muses, taking one strand from the back of her hand and lifting it up. Yumiko tracks the movement on the mirror in front of her. She smiles. Yeah, it doesn't take very long at all for them to prepare the second batch of bleach. Instead of talking, as Lilia applies the product, Yumiko decides to continue reading from before she dozed off. Not allowed this time. The second application of bleach feels like it happened even quicker, though that can be attributed to her being absorbed in her reading. Oh, you've made considerable progress in such a short time, Lilia comments, eyeing the position of the bookmark as she sets it aside. I guess I'm a fast reader, Yumiko shrugs. She personally doesn't think it's that significant to note. Sure, she started around 10 or 15 pages in and is now about a quarter of the way done with a large book, but anyone could do that. Additionally, many of the pages had various images to supplement the text. Did anything interesting stand out to you? Lilia questions, plopping down in front of her with his phone in his hand. He appears to be doing something on it. Checking notifications, maybe? Regardless, she perks up at the offer to share what she's read so far. Well, it initially evolved from the dagger, which I didn't know at all, and there's also the fact different types of swords are good for some things like thrusting, slashing, or cutting. It can come to the expense of other things of those other things as well, like the rapier. It was really good for quick movements since it was light and also dueling, because it was so thin and pointy that a precise enough thrust in the right spot could end it super quick, but you couldn't do any slashing with it. Then there are swords like the saber, which were heavier and made for slashing and chopping many opponents at once, which I guess made it appealing to cavalry, but then some swords aren't used exclusively for battle, like the cutlass. Apparently the cutlass was used in agriculture and sailing because it was good at cutting things like thick rope. Yumiko shares, taking periodic breaks to sip from a juice box. What I found most interesting, though, was that different places created different swords from various materials, and how swords were made or changed over time. She finishes. There's also a lot of swords, which means a lot of information, so the history is mostly being sorted by location. Well, that would make sense. The development of swords predates the discovery of magic, after all, Lilia hums in agreement. Now then, you said you had no interests beyond reading or puzzles, he asks, abruptly changing the topic. Yeah, Yumiko blinks in confusion. Why? Lilia giggles, grabbing something from beside his desk and sitting back down in front of her. He taps something on his phone screen, and the sound of drums starts playing through the phone speakers. Allow me to introduce you to the wonders of rock music and video games, he declares, handing Yumiko a rectangular controller. The music is loud, and Yumiko doesn't think she recognizes the game Lilia is booting up, but she smiles all the same. Okay, that's going to be it for the first part. That is long, okay. There should be more coming out soon. There's only one chapter of the fic for now, but again, it's by Kirabasai. I will see if I can put a link to the fic in the description. I'm not sure how to do that, as this is literally my first ever video, but we'll see. I did get permission before uploading this. You can ask to make sure if you want. So yeah, that was, I don't know, not even a quarter of chapter 1. It's a long fic for one chapter so far. See ya. Thank you for tuning in. Keep continuing. Maybe tomorrow? I don't know. But bye.